What is the, there's on your, there's something, well, you know, the sign, driving, turning. It says something about a mirror, a pit. The pit is open for the inspection pit. Oh, okay. Because it sounds, I was like, okay, is that like a plate on a house thing?
I would do that. I'm learning from you.
Can't say that I would either, so. Is there something about being in the journey of okay. That's good. Yes, and, George, the George. Okay. Well, it's not that. It would be fine. It would be fine.
No,
All
I'm
right.
not leveraging. Maybe,
It's time to start our study session. Summer, if you'll call the roll, we'll get started.
Commissioner Patterson?
here,
Commissioner Norwood?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Roberts? Here. Commissioner Stallings?
Here.
Commissioner Orr?
Here.
And Mayor Mason?
Here.
All present.
Item number 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Okay. Item 3.1, update on the demolition of a portion of the old wastewater treatment plant. David, you spent more time at the microphone in the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on my DJ stuff for the future. Mayor, Commission, this is just a little update on what you can get for $150,000. So essentially, we did have a demolition that started in 2020 of one of the clarifiers out there. That did have some issues with it, so there was a break on doing that. We started our continuation of this year, and it's just, as you probably can figure, it's part of a larger project of making that plant go away and take away any type of liability for its existence there. So this is just, if you haven't ever seen it, the old plant, it's on Market Street. The things that are going to be staying, the overflow pond, the solids processing for now, and there's a utilities maintenance building that's out there. But everything else that you can see on that picture is slated to essentially, at one point, go away. This is just a zoomed in image on what we did the demo on. Essentially, it's going to be this part over here.
That's the
And-
so-called racetrack, right?
Yeah, it's called a racetrack. That's the biological treatment system. There was a lime silo and there was a water treatment silo. The structure to the right is part of a future demolition. And this is just a little bit more of a zoom in so you can see what it looks like. Got started about, I'd say, 70 days ago. And this is just some pictures before. You can see the racetrack and some of the structures. That's it in the background, and that's the water tower sitting there. And then they got started tearing everything down, tearing all the structures out. I will say one thing that they found out, which is an educational thing. The plant was built to last. So the amount of rebar and metal inside of that concrete was kind of awe-inspiring. And I'm sure the contractor was not awe-inspired, is probably just upset. But you can see some of the rebar sitting there on the ground. getting rid of it, a lot of the structures out of there, piles of rebar to the right and to the back. All that, those little piles that you can see are essentially just metal rebar. They do have most of it out of there. And that's just a picture of all the rebar. And essentially, they should be done pretty soon. I went out there actually yesterday at about 6, and it was all level and nice. There is some rebar out there still, but it's in the process of just getting done.
Where's all that debris going? Is it going to
It's
Jackson's
actually going
side
to
or the
their
landfill?
property.
Okay.
They're taking it and they're looking at reusing it, and if they wish to, they'll drop it off at the landfill. But at this point, they're taking it to their property, and
Which is outside the city limits, I believe.
yes, sir. Matter of fact, I did have a picture of this. You can see a lot clearer and a lot more level. So that's what it looks like as of, I think this was last Friday or Saturday or something, I don't know. But that's where we are right now, but we will be demolishing more and more structures. And this is just one of those things that most of the citizens do not know exists, and most of them will never know it exists, but it's something that's in our responsibility to make sure that we take care of it. Barring that, if you have any questions?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a few follow-up things. If you've never been out there, we're happy to give you a tour of the new plant anytime. Part of the solids plant is at the old plant, still in use. I think it was built in '87. I know Morale, we're working on plans. I think we have an engineer engaged on a new plant. But I wanted to mention that because I think we're pretty good at building things. And certainly when it comes to spending money that takes millions and millions and millions of dollars, I'd much rather build things. But what it leaves behind is old things, and this was $150,000, it's just a fraction. If you saw the old plant, it's just a fraction. It would cost millions to tear down all of the old one. There's structure at the old one that was from the 50s too,
Yep.
that's been out of commission even longer. So what probably we're going to do, Morale, is as we go further with our engineering on the new plant at some point, when we're ready to come and talk to the commission, I'm thinking we're going to end up probably funding that through a loan. We're going to need to probably, I would suggest, include some money to finish tearing down this old one. Otherwise, we'll keep doing this, but $150,000 a time, you would have to see. He was very kind in saying it was built to last, even though
Yeah.
it doesn't last forever.
Yeah.
So it will cost, at this rate, millions of dollars to remove it all. So, and we want it to go away because it's a good thing. It's back office stuff. People don't want to see it. And they definitely don't want to see that part because it's old and out of operation. It's got trees growing up in it and out. And so-
And one of our concerns is, it's empty, open buildings and facilities, and there are potential of
It's an
homeless
attractive
people
nuisance.
getting in there.
Great place to play.
Right, and then one of the problems is they get in there and it's an industrial place and there's the potential for noxious gases and things like that. I don't want to go out there one day and find a person down in one of those holes, so we just want to make sure it goes away. Yes, sir.
David, as you're kind of tearing things down, is there any toxic issues we need to deal with?
In that
I'm sure you're-
structure,
yeah.
in that structure right there, there was lime. There was a little bit of lime in that tower that was left over, and that's a little bit toxic. It can get to pH about 11.5 or 12, so it can burn the skin a little bit. But they didn't have enough that it was a problem. Most of the stuff out there is essentially biological material that had been in there so long, it's just degraded and it's just, for all intents and purposes, dirt.
Okay.
Yeah, and matter of fact, we actually checked the water that was in the tanks for any type of bacteria, and it all came up negative. Yes.
The press building's still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and the drying
press building is
beds
still
are-
operational.
The drying beds are still there being
Yes, sir.
used? Okay.
With that, we actually need that capacity because we have nowhere else to put it.
The
We are
press
working on
building
that.
is the solids building, yes. You want to explain the press that's still there that we use, that presses? the
Yeah,
solids?
so the treatment process in that racetrack or any type of big structure on there essentially has, for lack of a better term, a mixture of bacteria, bugs, protozoa, other things, tardigrades, which are water bears, and those are what essentially eat the stuff that we flush down the toilet. But it is essentially about a 2% solid. Now, the landfill cannot take something that won't pass what's called a paint filter test, which means you take your material, put it in a paint filter, and no water's supposed to pass through. If water passes through, it cannot be accepted to landfill. So essentially, we have what looks like a series of belts, and it presses out the water, just squeezes out the water and makes, for all intents and purposes, what we call sludge. I call them mud pies. But
Sludge cake.
Yeah, sludge cake. I call them mud pies because I have kids, so, but sludge cake, and I know people don't like either of those terms associated with this stuff. But it is, one thing about it is almost entirely bug bodies. A lot of people associate it with poop or other things. It's just the leftover bug bodies that were used to actually treat the material. But then we get it up to about 17 to 21% solids, and the landfill can accept that. And essentially, we just take it over there and dump it. And that biological material is actually helpful to the methane generation spark project that you guys looked at last week or the week before.
Do you have any idea how many pounds of that goes into our landfill a year?
I know what it is. We actually have everything tracked on a spreadsheet. So all the weight that goes in there, we have it tracked, but I don't know offhand.
I mean, just approximately.
I can't tell you.
Okay.
No, I can't. I want to, but definitely shooting from the hip on that.
Okay.
Hundreds or thousands of tons.
A lot. Several truckloads a week.
We definitely produce a lot here.
Yeah. Yeah.
50,000 plus people.
A lot. I can find out, though.
Other questions or comments?
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 3.2, discuss the proposed improvements to the Jerry Allen Memorial Skate Park utilizing reallocated CDBG funds.
Mayor, Commissioners, it's good to see everyone again. I failed to wear my name tag, so I'll just say my name is Kristen Day. I'm our Community Development Block Grant Coordinator, and I have Corey. I don't know if you.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
So today we're really excited to talk with you all about some proposed reallocations to the Jerry Allen Memorial Skate Park, utilizing reclaimed Community Development Block Grant funds. So we're going to talk about those changes with you and then also just highlight where those funds are being reallocated from. So some background about the project. On October 31st, our funding commission held a special meeting and recommended the approval of $65,981.42 to the Jerry Allen Memorial skate park. And so this is using reclaimed funds from 2022 and 2023 Community Development Block Grant years. The skate park is in an eligible low to moderate income area, which means it's eligible to be funded with CDBG funds. And then I'll turn it over to Corey to talk a little bit more about the specifics of the proposed changes to the park itself.
We'd kind of gone over this briefly a couple meetings ago, but I'll just go over some details. And I got a few pictures of the old equipment that we're going to be putting back there. So again, it is this is going to consist of demolishing the concrete foundation pad that's there right now, and then a contractor will pour a new 50 by 80 pad on which we will come in there and the Parks Department will put the old equipment back together.
Corey, just to orient them a little bit, where the skate park is now, we're talking about the site directly north of it, which is part of the city
South
owned?
of it.
South of it,
Yes,
yes. It's
right on
part of the
Broadway.
Property owned by the city. There's, some old concrete foundations for something, and also the top of a stormwater box. We won't be
Correct.
messing with that.
Yes, yes. There is a stormwater box. I don't know if we got a picture of that one. This is the old equipment. I'll let you take a look at some of that. But all of that is at our shop right now and ready to be reinstalled on
And
this
this
new
all
pad.
used to be right behind City Hall. Some of you been around, remember that.
I do.
And Jerry
There.
Allen was very instrumental back then on that one.
On the original.
And on this one.
He sure was. So this is the area we're talking about right here, is this kind of square pad right here. You can see the stormwater. It's a covered stormwater drain that runs right through here.
So that's right off Broadway, and I think that's Fifth Street right there?
Yes, Fifth and
That
Broadway.
goes up to Randolph.
So essentially, this pad right here is where all the old equipment will go. We do have brand-new sidewalks connecting the whole park, but we will not be able to cross over that storm detention right now. I think that's about all we've got. Yeah, there's some pictures of that pad right there. This is actually on Broadway looking kind of north-northwest, just to give you a perspective. And that is all. I'll go back to some of these pictures so you can take a look. There's a half pipe, quarter pipe is what they're called.
So we won't be able to cross over the stormwater drain because of why?
You can on foot. We just can't build anything on top of it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
Okay.
clarify that good enough.
Okay.
We can't build anything across the top of it, but you can absolutely
Okay,
walk
but
it.
they'll have access to
Yes,
just go,
yes,
okay,
yes.
got it.
Corey, just giving it the eyeball test, it looks like it's being used on a really heavy level. Have you guys generated some numbers? Because, I mean, coming and going, I see folks there all the time.
I don't know. We do have cameras up there, but I don't, there is always people there.
Seems like,
Morning, evening, afternoon, always. I don't think I rarely go by there when there's nobody there. So it's definitely getting utilized. The only other thing that we haven't really discussed that we will eventually be doing is the Jerry Allen Memorial Skate Park sign. I know ex-Commissioner Siragusa was really involved with that, and he's got some drawings and some plans. So I may reach out to him and find out where all that is, but it was a really nice sign.
Yeah, so there was always, when we moved the skate park for the police to make way for the training center over there, we moved it in very short order down there. I think it was about a 6-month, maybe 7, 8-month lead time. Chris Bauer headed that up for us. And we always knew we were going to bring back this retro, or whatever we want to call it, old school skate park to go with it. We will have some engineering challenges to get over because we're probably going to ask for a pump track to connect the two in the next budget year. And we'll have to figure out how we can run that from the new park to the old park where a pump track is like a hilly slalom type thing. They can ride between the two parks. And the signage, you're right, there's a sign, and Commissioner Siragusa had shared with us information on that. We'll definitely follow up. And the sign was fairly big, and I think it had to be fabricated, and it also was going to have a mural painted on it, or some artwork with pictures of Jerry Allen, obviously, young pictures of Jerry.
How about that?
Jerry had hair.
He did, once upon a time, I remember, he did.
And then I think older pictures of Jerry, and I think that's what I recall. I don't think we got a picture of that here, but we'll certainly share that in the future. The big expense on concrete that we have right away and making a size, can you talk to us about the pad size? And
Yeah, it is a 50-foot by 80-foot pad. So that's the majority of the
and we
cost.
got
and
a
that's-
quote on that. I think it was, Scott,
We've got it up.
was that about $50,000 or more in concrete, I think?
Yeah, they've got the quote right there.
$61,265 was the winning bid on that for removal, and
That's probably our intent immediately on this CDBG money, assuming that you
Yes.
approve that in the meeting later tonight, is to go forward on that. We'll get with Commissioner Siragusa on the signage and kind of develop that plan a little further, bring it back, make sure you guys are, approve it, and then I don't know what it will cost. We may have to make a budget adjustment and/or look at it for next year's budget. But that pump track is something that I know we're going to want to add definitely in next year's
Yeah.
budget. And then we'll probably want to plant a few trees. We do have nice sidewalks there around there, as you pointed out. The street's been redone on both sides, Broadway and, well, all of it, Broadway, Fifth, and
Randolph.
Randolph. There's nice parking there, there's a water fountain there, there's a shade structure. We may need to put another shade structure. So it should develop into a pretty good area for our youth, particularly the youth that, as Jerry Allen said, don't play baseball,
sports.
football,
Yeah.
but they skate.
Any future dream of a competitive tournament type situation?
You know, I don't know. I'm sure that's a possibility.
We have 2 skate tournament jams, competitions there a year. We get some help from an outside source who's a skate park guy that brings people in and promotes it. I do know we had a opening ceremony back in, I think, 2021 when we opened that. And we had people come from Stillwater, a lot of surrounding areas, and they were very impressed with it. They said that it was very well designed and well liked by everybody, so. But yeah, we have one in the spring and one in the fall, kind of a back-to-school competition. I don't know much about skating other than, than this.
Yeah, you missed it on the opening ceremony. Kyle Dillingham was skating and playing his violin at the same time.
Yeah.
That was something else to see.
He's amazing, yeah, he's just gifted when it comes to that.
So the intent of the money is to go towards the concrete pad. Corey, tell us a little bit about how you and your team and whoever else you need from the city to assist, you're going to be able to attach and figure out how to attach those old
Correct. Yeah.
obstacles or features there.
Yeah, this money, like I said, will just be used for the demolition and reconstruction of the concrete. Our guys, we have all the measurements and everything from when we tore it down, and I say tore it down, when we removed them. We didn't tear anything apart, so. The only thing that actually came apart was the half pipe, the half circle thing there, and yeah, it'll be really easy to go back together.
These were constructed, but probably built by city folks back in the day, welded, it's
Probably.
thick steel. We'll probably have to repaint it and all that stuff, of
Yeah, we
course,
can
make it look
shiny.
good, and it'll be nice for those that want to go retro, so.
I know, I may have mentioned this last time, but I was there getting measurements when I was working on the quotes, and a guy just happened to stop and, hey, you guys bringing the old skate park equipment back? And I was like, yeah, that's actually what we're working on. And he was thrilled. He said, there's a lot of people talking about this. They always knew the rumors that they were still out there coming back, so he was really excited.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say kudos to Commissioner Ben Ezel. He had a lot to do with this. He really pushed for it. So I'd just like to acknowledge that part of this was his idea as well.
About the mural, is it holding up pretty well?
Very well,
That was
yes.
That's a beautiful piece of
It
work.
really is.
It is beautiful, yeah.
It is holding up perfect.
I have to follow up with Joe, and I have to criticize Commissioner Zell because he tried to teach me to get on a skateboard. And I fell on my posterior about 4 or 5 times and retired from the sport.
Do we have pictures?
I hope not. I hope not.
And the mayor at the time roller skated on it too, so.
That's right, Mayor Pinkinen did.
Sure
So he
did.
said,
Now, let me stop you right there. So I was Ward 6 Commissioner whenever we first appropriated the money to do this. And I'll never forget $350,000, if my memory serves me correctly. And I remember seeing that on there, and Jerry called me because I'm going, oh, man, I am not seeing that. I just don't think anybody will use that. And I'll never forget, he just said, David, trust me on this. There are a lot of kids out there that will use this that you may not know. And I voted that night for it, and it's one of the best deals I ever did. So that being said, when we get this portion finished with this $65,000, wherever that takes us, I definitely want to make sure we figure out how to get some money in the budget next year. I'd like to finish that with the ramp, I don't know what it's called, that you just said, maybe some more shade down there. I don't think you can ever have enough shade in Oklahoma. And that sign. I want to get that sign done, and that'll pretty much put a check mark on that project for quite a while. And I think we'll have something that not only can we be proud of, but a lot of people will utilize and continue to utilize. So thank y'all for what you're doing down there. Keep looking for more money, right? We'll put it somewhere. So thank y'all. Any other questions before? No? All right, very good. Item 3.3, update on Enid Woodring Regional Airport Project. Before you start, Keston, last week, I lose track of time.
Yeah, last week.
Yeah, we had the ribbon cutting on the second joint use hangar.
Yeah.
Is that right? Am I saying it
Yeah, I
right?
think that was, I'm trying to think now too. I think it might have been 2 weeks ago. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, time flies. Was the ribbon cutting, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And I tell you what, if you haven't taken time to drive around our airport out there, we had the director of the Oklahoma
Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics.
Yes, thank you for being here tonight and correcting me on all that. I sincerely appreciate that, but I'm just telling you, Enid is setting ourselves up to be in a very, very good place. Not just with the military, we've worked hard at that over a lot of years, but also for private industry.
Yes.
And for those of you that don't know, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, the aerospace business just replaced ag in Oklahoma as the second position on grossing the most revenue in the state.
Absolutely.
And they anticipate that to go to number 1 in the next 5 years. Last year, they produced $44 billion in our state and 200,000 jobs. So the fact that we are ahead of that curve today, getting all the things done that we're doing, will set us so far apart. And it allows our economic development group to go out there and say, we are pad ready. We are ready to go if you have an aerospace business that you want to bring to Enid. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
No, yeah, I'll hardly say it better myself, but yeah, I've got lots to talk about at the airport and what we're doing, what we have done, what we plan to do. So, you know, like you said, Keston Cook, the airport director, of course, for the city of Enid. I'll just go over a quick overview. What I'm going to talk about, of course, we'll talk about some airport statistics. I'll make that pretty brief. Probably most of you know a lot of it already, but just wanted to highlight some of it in case you didn't know. Move on to some of the projects that we have done in the past, not all of them, but some of them. What the projects we have ongoing right now and the projects that we're looking at in the immediate future. And then at the end, I'll talk about or take any questions that you have about what's going on at the airport. And of course, at any time, if you see something and want a little bit more clarification or anything like that, feel free to jump in, interrupt me. I'll be glad to stop and answer your question. So some airport stats. First, a view from overhead so you know what I'm talking about when I reference different things. The big runway that's kind of in the center there, north-south, is runway 1735. It's our main runway out at the airport. It's the one that's just a little over 8,000 usable feet. A little smaller one in comparison. It looks tiny, but it's actually 3,150 feet. It's runway 1331, and then just north of that you'll see is our main hangar group and development area. Of course, the airport owns quite a bit of the land all the way around it. You can see to the south of runway 1331, and just to the west of 1735, we own quite a bit of that land as well. So it's a little over 1,000 acres that the airport has inside of its perimeter fence that we maintain. So runway, like I said, 1735 is 8,002 usable feet. If you actually went out there and walked it, it'd be 8,613 feet from end to end. 100 feet wide, has instrument operations capabilities with an ILS, an instrument landing system down on the south side. North side's just a GPS because you don't have the space in between the airport itself and, of course, the railroad track to the north. Runway 1331 is our crosswind runway, predominantly used by general aviation aircraft. It was just recently reconstructed in concrete now, so 3,150 feet used to be a non-standard 108 feet wide, but during the reconstruction we made it a standard 75 feet. We do have a control tower out there. It's an FAA contract control tower. Ran by currently Robinson Aviation, but they just recently at the national level rezoned the contract tower program. So it'll be switching to, I think it's Midwest Air Traffic Control off the top of my head, coming in early next year. Of course, we'll still have all the same controllers that we have out there right now, just a different company. On average, we see about 3,500 to 4,000 operations per month. So that's any time the wheels of a aircraft touch the pavement of our runway. Predominantly, about 50% on average come from Vance Air Force Base, but the rest are general aviation, either our local flight school or businesses coming into the area or transient aircraft that are coming for our fuel. Approximately 100 of the aircraft are based out at Woodring. predominantly in the 90 or so city-owned hangars, but there are about 23 to 25 private-owned hangars out there as well. So quite a large airport, actually. A lot of people don't realize how big we are out there. So some of the services we provide, we have a transient hangar. Of course, now it's 2 of them. Joint use hangars, we have the old one and the new one, both of them 120 foot by 120 foot, 90 foot wide doors. The old one has a 25 foot usable opening height, and the new one has a slightly smaller 23 usable opening height. The reason being the old one was designed in case we ever had the need for commercial service here in Enid. You could fit a small commercial airliner into the old joint use hangar with that 25-foot opening. Thought being, since we could fit one already, we probably didn't need the capacity for 2 commercial airliners, so to save costs, we made the second one a little bit shorter. The use case on the second joint use hangar is actually Citation 10, which is a mid-sized business aircraft. Offer 2 types of fuel. You have Jet A, used by turbine aircraft, and then 100 low lead, so 100 octane low leaded fuel that's used by the smaller piston general aviation aircraft predominantly. We offer competitive fuel prices. We're corporate aircraft association members, so we offer a special discount to those members. And we offer volume discounts. If you purchase a large quantity of fuel, you get it for cheaper. We also offer a few pilot amenities to help make the place more amenable to our corporate members that move through. So, of course, we've got ice, coffee, pilot lounges. It's 24-hour access to the pilot lounge. It's got a crew area for rest. It's got a shower, bathroom, all that good stuff. And then, of course, our operation hours, we're open at the airport itself, and we have someone staffed out there from 6 a.m. in the morning to 9:30 p.m. at night, and that's 7 days a week, 365 days a year, including holidays. So if you fly out on Christmas, there's somebody there to take care of you. Tower is open 6:30 a.m. to 9 p.m., and that's the same 365 days a year. So there's almost always someone up in the control tower as well. If you come in after hours, of course, you use local traffic, but if you need services from the airport itself, we have an on-call that we provide as well. So you can call a number, and within 30 minutes, we'll have someone out there to take care of you. So another big thing we do out there is, of course, take care of businesses. A lot of people don't really realize it or think about it, but we are a lot of times the front door to the city. When you have big business that comes into Enid, they don't drive in very often. It's almost always coming in on private corporate aircraft. Of course, we've got local businesses as well that utilize the airport, like Atwoods, Grondike, Envirotech, and all of them. So quite a few businesses that operate out of our airport and utilize the infrastructure that we have out there. Then, of course, you have some of the transient businesses in town like Coke or Advanced Pierre that will fly in. So, again, when the executives of these large companies fly in, the first place that they see when they fly into Enid is our airport and are greeted by, our airport staff who are city employees. And then also we offer a range of emergency services that use the airport too. We have mediflights. If there's a medevac that needs to come through town and they need to stop and get gas, a lot of times they stop at the airport to do so. And that is probably largely, probably 90% of our call outs late at night is for medevac flights that are coming in late at night to move patients. You also have some Army Black Hawks that move through from time to time, Chinooks, fire services, Civil Air Patrol, Department of Homeland Security occasionally flies through, so that sort of things as well. Additional uses, of course, a big user of the airport, approximately half of our traffic, like I said earlier, is Vance Air Force Base. We like to say that we're kind of the 4th runway for Vance, and I hope they feel the same way. So a lot of traffic out there, and we also hold the military fuel contract for the area so that they can stop and gas up and get out easily and efficiently out of their airport. And then general aviation, the other half of our operations out there, you've got 75 to 80 or more, depending on how our hangar situation is looking, if they're completely filled or not, of general aviation aircraft. Some of them, of course, are also, experimental aircraft that are being put together and that sort of thing. Can't be counted in our based aircraft number. But those are the other operators of the airport itself. So whether that's businesses or your personally owned 172, it all can be utilized out at the airport. And then some of the smaller or little lesser-known things that we have out there. Aircraft structures, kind of the premier place for if you have a Cessna Caravan. It's a style of aircraft utilized heavily by DHL or FedEx. It's a small cargo plane. They are I think one of maybe 2 places nationwide that works on these specific types of aircraft. So a large portion of our south end of the airport is taken up by aircraft structures where they rebuild, repair, and take care of those Cessna Caravans. And then on the other side, for our general aviation customers, you have Wren Aviation, who does both the flight school and the annual maintenance and that sort of thing on general aviation aircraft. And then funding. So as you all are probably aware, we're an enterprise fund for the city of Enid. So we don't take any taxpayer revenue, or we do our absolute best not to. Occasionally, I'm not going to say absolutely never. Some of the bigger projects like the runway extension or the terminal building did have some city funding in with it. But for predominantly, it's all funded through grants. A large portion of those come from the FAA, and then of course our Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics matching 5% grants, but also we utilize a few other sources that a lot of airports aren't able to or don't realize that they can utilize, such as the Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning Commission, Oklahoma Development Finance Authority, and the DoD. And so our team that runs the airport out there, there's 6 of us. There's me as the director. I have an ops manager underneath me, and then 6 airport technicians. So the 8 of us are the ones that run that airport, those 6 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., 7 days a week. So we're a small crew, but a large part of that is because we have the support of the city of Enid behind us that's able to help us do some of those back-end stuff. The behind the scenes that's not near as flashy, that doesn't get to talk about a lot of it. So finance, doing all of our accounting, communications, helping us with marketing, that sort of thing. So while we're a small team out there, we're pretty mighty, I would say. So I'll talk about some projects now. Looking in the past, especially when you start looking at our relationship with Vance Air Force Base and where we tried to start utilizing some of those off the beaten path types of funding sources, it really all started with our first joint use hangar. Started construction at the end of 2011. I think it actually finished at the early part of 2012. It was 120-foot by 120-foot hangar, like I said earlier. It has 2 90-foot wide doors. It's a flow-through design. And was funded at a 50-50% split between the Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning Commission and the city of Enid funding. So total project cost of $573,500. I'd like you to keep that number in mind when a little bit later when we talk about the new joint use hangar, because it's a pretty good example of how prices have changed over the last 10 years or so. So used heavily by both the military and the general aviation community. It's called joint use hangar for a reason, because it's used jointly by both military aircraft and civilian aircraft. So you can see in that picture we have T-38s and T-6s right next to small general aviation planes down in the back. And so anyone who flies in, these aircraft are worth quite a lot of money. You don't want to have your $100,000 $150,000 small GA plane sitting outside when a hailstorm moves through. Same can be said for your $2 or $3 million jet. And so this allows us to store those aircraft in a safe manner and makes it more desirable for people to stop here in Enid and get their services. Next big project I want to talk about, 2015 project, although it took many years to actually do, was our 1735 extension. So previously it was about a 6,000-foot runway. This project extended it to just over 8,000 usable feet. And overall cost just over $9 million. I want to say it was 9.1 or between 9.1 and 9.8. I don't remember exactly off the top of my head, but a lot was needed to happen to get this project to completion, including the rerouting of Southgate Road to the south, the purchasing of new land to the airport, and the extension of the runway itself. So a very, very big project, but has had great dividends on the airport itself.
Hey, Keston?
Yeah.
Can I ask you on that 8,000 feet?
Yes.
Well, can anything land out there on that now?
So it is long enough to land just about any aircraft. Really, the the quantifier on what we can help or support out there is the thickness of the pavement. So much of that pavement out there is only 6 inches thick. There's a couple of different ways that you can look at what aircraft you support. So we publish a weight-bearing capacity for our airport, both in pounds, and then also what we call, or what's called the PCN-ACN method. So you have pavement control numbers, the PCN, which are associated with the aircraft control numbers on the aircraft side of things. So your weight-bearing capacity that we post online doesn't really take into account the configuration, the gear configuration on aircraft. So we can take small commercial aircraft. Long answer short is we can take small commercial aircraft. When you get into some of the heavier stuff like large military aircraft like KC-135s or C-10s or anything like that, the pavement itself won't actually support the weight of it. They can come in if they come in exceedingly light on their fuel, but at that point it's probably not worth them to land there unless it's an emergency. We can take like an ERJ 135 though, or a CRJ. So small commercial 30 to 50 seaters is really where we cap out. On the business side, like business aviation, it's only the large business aircraft that we really can't take. So anything like when you get into like the Gulfstream 650 area of aircraft, you start pushing the limits of what our pavement can withstand.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the ACN for that is a 26, which probably doesn't mean anything particularly, but it's what we try to use most often when people call and ask what type of aircraft we can hold, because that number takes into account the gear configuration of the aircraft that's landing on the pavement. Of course, the more gears that you have and then at different widths, disperses the weight a different amount.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So after that, the next big project that we kind of did was a joint use parking apron. So right in front of the joint use hangar, we have what we call our joint use ramp. And so a 2016 project is about 46,000 square feet of ramp that we constructed. It was specifically designed with military aircraft in mind and was designed to hold roughly 12 T6s, 6 T1s, or 8 T38s. Of course, also a joint use, and it gets used pretty heavily by our civilian traffic as well. A lot of times if you go out there, you'll see the flight school, Mach 3 or in aviation, has almost always got an aircraft parked on it. So both beneficial to the general aviation community, and then of course used heavily it's our primary military parking ramp. So if a T6, a T1, or a T38 gets or lands at the airport, there's probably a 75% chance or greater that it'll get parked on this pavement. Project cost about $500,000. This was another Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning Commission funded project with the city of Enid. I think it was closer to a 40-60 split, but I'm not positive on that one. And then our new terminal building. So this was a 2019 project, a very exciting project. It was one of the first terminal buildings in the state of Oklahoma that took advantage of then it was the Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission. It's now the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics terminal building grant. And so it was newly designed and upgraded facility. It includes an improved restaurant and dining area, of course. Barnstormers has been out there for quite some time and is a quite popular place, and I highly recommend that you make it out there if you haven't. But it also includes what we call our joint use planning room. So a room specifically designed for Vance again, to help them with their mission as they landed at Woodring Airport, so that they could land there when they were getting fuel, maybe get some food at the restaurant, go into this joint use planning room, debrief, and then brief again for the next sortie. And so joint use because it is also used by general aviation. And in fact, we had a corporate transient guy come through, landed at Woodring, got fuel, and went into the joint use planning room and had a conference call meeting at the same time he was getting fuel. So a very good facility that is used and recommended highly. Total project cost was $2.6 million, had some FAA funding in it, but was predominantly funded by the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics, a little bit of Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning Commission money, and then of course the City of Enid funding as well. On to the next one. This is a more recent project, as 2023 project. Was the reconstruction of our crosswind runway 1331. Of course, on the left there, you can see the old pavement. It was an asphalt runway that was cracking, and it had some pretty serious grass intrusions onto the runway itself. Something you can't really see on that picture too is that it was pretty wavy. It kind of had a little bit of a bump to it. And so this project came in, it milled, and then did a concrete overlay of the runway itself, what they call white capping. So with new concrete. Narrowed it down from the non-standard 108 feet to 75 feet, and we also added pilot-controlled LED lighting and PAPI system, so a precision approach path indicator lighting, a two-box PAPI system onto it. So a way for, as pilots are coming into land on this runway, has a little two-box lighting system that shows them that they're on the correct descent angle. It was 90% funded. It was a normal FAA 90% funding on the grant side, with a 5% match by the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics, and then of course the 5% match from the city of Enid as well. And so total project cost with lights in the construction or white capping was right at $3 million total.
Keston, can the T6s land on that?
I imagine they could in an emergency, but it's actually too short for the use of them. I think they want, off the top of my head, of course, he could, 5,000 feet is what they want to see on a runway before they'll use it. And so
Why have they stopped giving money for cross?
Yes, so we're probably one of the last crosswind runways that you'll see reconstructed in Oklahoma, or probably nationwide, because the FAA has released a new, I wouldn't call it a mandate, but really a change in their priorities of funding. So crosswind runways, they've decided, are no longer a priority for aviation, and that they feel that their money can be better spent on primary runways. So of course, when we go out for grants, we're funded predominantly by FAA grants, and the priority for those FAA grants is the center line of your main runway out. And so previously, if your main runway was in good condition and your associated main taxiway with that runway, the next priority would be your secondary or crosswind runway, or now they just call them secondary runways. But they've decided that the amount of money that they have funded towards crosswind runways for the use of those that pavement is, I guess, just no longer economically feasible or viable for them. I would personally probably disagree, but of course I'm an infrastructure guy, right? So I would imagine when that GA, that 172 is up in the air and he gets caught, before a strong, especially in the summer, those storms move through, and all of a sudden you can have a heavy crosswind wind move through. I imagine that general aviation pilot is probably pretty happy that we have a crosswind runway at Woodring Airport. It's much safer to land, of course, directly into the wind, and it can be a little exciting if you're running at a 90-degree angle. So I don't know exactly why the FAA decided fully, but they've decided that the priorities for their funding are no longer on crosswind runways.
Likely the funding. The crosswinds are really more for the general aviation anyway, right?
Yes,
The military doesn't really use the crosswinds, do they, or they did? Okay.
So the military, I imagine, I think they have a certain amount of crosswind landings and just like general aviation, there's a certain amount of crosswind landings that you want to do when you're going through your training, so that if you're ever in that situation, you know what to do. Of course, predominantly our winds are north and south here, so it can be really hard sometimes to get those crosswind landing trainings in. So the other thing that this runway provides is a way to do those crosswind training landings on a normal weather day. So even if the weather's coming out of the north or south, you can land on 1331 and still get in a crosswind landing and get that training done. So this is just new recent project, which we cut the ribbon on just 2 weeks ago, as you can see in that picture, and that's our new joint use hangar. So right next door to the old one, same 120 foot by 120 foot design, almost identical, except for a little bit nicer on the inside, and it has radiant tube heating and is sprinkled as well. But it was funded by the Department of Defense through a Defense Community Infrastructure Program grant through the Office of Local Defense Community and Cooperation, also through the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics, and then a Oklahoma Development Finance Authority public-private partnership grant as well. So 3 funding sources that all went into one building. Total project cost just over $2 million when it's all said and done. So remember earlier when I said remember that dollar amount, it really doesn't go near as far as it used to. So a hangar that would have cost just north of $500,000 in 2011, much closer to $2 million nowadays. It's pretty incredible how that price has changed.
This one's got a better door on it, though, doesn't it?
Yes, so a slightly different design door, actually.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so.
I don't know if it's worth $1.5 million more, but
Yeah, so it does
it's
have.
easier for you guys to operate.
Yes,
isn't it?
easier for us to operate.
At home, you push a button and it goes up or opens.
Yeah, so the old one operates in a similar fashion. They're both what are called tip-over canopy doors, in which they lift straight up just a little bit, and then they kind of tip over, and you have part of the hangar door inside and part of it outside. In fact, when you look at the front, you see there's that truss on the front. That's kind of, when it's fully open, that'll be sitting kind of flush with the top of the hangar, so it's about half in and half out. The old hangar door design uses a cable system, so it has one hydraulic cylinder that goes up to a cable drum assembly, and those cables run across the entire front of the door, and it lifts up from those cables in the middle of the door. Good idea in theory. I think the door that we have out on the 90-foot one on the old joint use hangar, really pushing the limits of that style of door. And in fact, I think the person who constructed that door said he would never go any wider than 90 foot with that design. So the problem being is that it has that one point of failure on the old door design. If that one hydraulic cylinder fails, or if the drum assembly that attaches all the cables to that cylinder fails, the door comes down. And so it's a lot to maintain. It's in fact hard to find people that will work on the door. We have to pay a company out of Oklahoma City to come to Enid. It's about $1,000 that we have to pay them just to look at the door. Not to do any repairs, not to do any maintenance on it, just to look at it. And so if it breaks, it's $1,000 to get a quote to fix it. And so this design, a much better design, I would say. It's a higher power door is the name of the brand. It's operated by 2 hydraulic cylinders, actually. It's one on each side. It doesn't have the cables that run through the middle, so you don't have to worry about the balancing of the cables and all that good stuff. The reason it has that truss on the center there is because the old system has those cables on the outside spread out through the entirety of the door. So when it's lifted up, you have that support across the entirety of the door. This one you have to have, since it just has the 2 hydraulic cylinders on the ends. If you didn't have that stability running through the center, when you'd open the door, it would actually sag. So that's what the truss is for. It also has the added benefit of when it's closed, it adds that stability again for wind load. That's another thing on the old door. With the old joint use hangar, if you have it closed, you have to have it pinned into the concrete. Otherwise, it has such a large face that if you have a really heavy windstorm that blows through, it'll actually buckle in that door, and you can go out there and you can see a curve to it. And so this one, you don't have to worry about that as well. Supposedly, according to the design of the door, if you have one of the hydraulic cylinders fail, while you can't open the door, it will slowly close the door as opposed to just falling and failing. The cylinder itself is not able to keep it open or open it with just one, but it'll slowly decompress as opposed to just falling all at once.
There's no way to disconnect that and crank it open manually or anything like that?
No, unfortunately not. The door is exceptionally heavy. And so there's really no way.
I was talking about
to
a big crank.
I guess if you had a big enough crane, anything's possible, right? But no, it is just the hydraulic cylinders, unfortunately. But and then we're looking at doing some slight modifications to the hangar already. We have some additional grant funding that we're looking to expend to add like a garage door access onto the back of the hangar. We have thought about that in case it ever does fail. We would like to have a secondary access on the backside, specifically just a garage door. It won't get aircraft in and out, but it will get equipment in to fix the door so that we don't have to cut a hole in the side of the hangar if we need to get equipment in and the hangar door fails. So we have thought about that, and we're looking at expending some additional grant funding to get that done.
What happens if there's someone inside?
Well, you have walk-through doors.
Ah, okay, very good.
Yeah,
very good.
yeah. You have 2 walk-through doors that you can exit in and out. Your plane will be stuck inside, which would be rather unfortunate, but at least you can leave.
Yeah.
So another thing that we just finished, South Ramp reconstruction. So it was done during the same project. What we collectively have called out the airport a lot of times was just the DSIP projects. So the South Ramp reconstruction was the other half of it. It was, again, 2024 project. It was a reconstruction of 8 portable hangars that we had down there. If you remember seeing them, they were kind of the old erected tube style type of hangars. And they had a really big problem with flooding, so they were the cheapest and least desirable hangars on the airport. And this project also reconstructed the 70,000 square foot ramp that was sitting in front of those hangars. And so back in, I think it was the 60s or 70s, at the time, the airport had a big need for hangars, so that we had places to put aircraft. We actually, during the last big oil boom, had hangars or aircraft that were just sitting out, tied down on the ramp. And so airport director at the time had the ability to purchase some portable hangars and took that opportunity and set them on what was the old south ramp and just bolted them straight into the concrete. The problem being, and you can kind of see on the backside of that picture, the drainage for that big ramp used to be behind those hangars. And so it would hit the 70,000 square foot ramp and it would flow straight to the drainage ditch, which was behind the hangars that was now bolted into the concrete. And so they would flood. Pilots don't typically like to have their nice expensive plane sitting in 2 inches of water for several days at a time. So we had the opportunity to partner with the Oklahoma Development Finance Authority and, of course, the Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation. Paired together, it was a $3.2 million project. It was funded largely by those two. It was a $1.5 million P3 grant and a $1.6 million OLDCC grant. And so reconstructed those 8 hangars, tore them out, and replaced them with brand new 48 by 40 conjoined box hangars. Using Schweiss electric bifold doors on them, and so incredibly nice doors. And then also reconstructed the 70,000 foot south ramp, which is our military overflow ramp. And so it uses predominantly by the military on the south ramp, so that's what all those Ts are there for. They're set up for T6s because that was the largest user of the south ramp, but we can also take T1s or T38s down there. Set up with 10 Ts and tie downs for T6s, and then also any other, of course, general aviation aircraft that we would need to put down there as well. So, of course, Vance uses us heavily on the weekends a lot of times, especially over holidays. And so if they ever put an exceptionally large amount of aircraft out there, we have a place to put them, or, if they ever need to divert, if a runway needs to go down for a reason, they have to land a lot of aircraft over at Woodring. This also provides us another place to put them down and allows us to tie them down as well if needed. So, now we're on to the current project. So this is a 2024 project that's ongoing right now. In fact, if you go out to the airport, you can see the massive piles of dirt in that area. So that little red highlighted area is the construction of a new taxi lane. So it'll open up about 70 acres for our hangar development. If you go out to the airport right now, we've got about 2, maybe 3 open spots that are available for hangar development. After that, we're completely full. And so this will start the process of opening up 70 acres. Part of this process was also the development of a new hangar development plan, which you can see is that green shading is where new apron and hangars will go as well. And it is a ordinary FAA grant, so it'll be a 90% FAA, 5% Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics, and 5% City of Enid funding. So $1.3 million total project cost. We'll construct the first of the taxiways to open it up and allow additional hangar spots that'll have runway access out at the airport. Looking next year, this will be a 2025 project. We've already started work with the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics to do about a $500,000 project, and that'll bring the utilities that are needed for the development of those hangars over to that new taxiway. So don't have a great picture of it, so put that area down there, but it'll basically, right now, the utilities, that being, water, sewer, and electric, pretty much end at those 2 big hangars down in the middle of that picture. which are aircraft structures hangars. So this will bring them over onto the other side towards that new taxiway and make that land development ready. And so if a business comes in and wants to build a hangar, anything from a 75-foot by 75-foot or 100-foot by 100-foot, they can fit them down on that taxiway, and it'll be ready to break ground immediately. Looking into 2025 as well, this is a runway 1735 and taxiway alpha rehab project. So the older portion of the runway, of course, not where the extension is, the first 6,000 feet, it's about a 14-year-old pavement. And so it's just needing a little bit of rehab. It's not a major reconstruction project or anything like that. We'll just go through, do some resealing of it, so redo all the joint seals, some minor crack repair if there is any that are needed, and then also, get rid of any vegetation that is intruding onto the runway itself. We'll also look at that time if we need to do any touch-up on the painting or markings of the runway, and then also any rubber removal if it's required at that time. But about a $1 million estimated project cost, and it'll be an FAA's regular FAA funded project, so it'll be a 90% FAA, 5% ODAA, and 5% City of Enid funding. Looking on to the year after that, this is kind of our next major project. It's a 2026 project. It is the rehab and reconfiguration of our main ramp. So a lot that you can see and a lot of colors there. So our main ramp, which is the semicircular ramp, it's a non-standard configuration for a ramp. And so this will box it off, as the hope is to box it off and make it more uniform. And then also add a second taxi lane access to our main runway. Right now, the only access point to runway 1735 is through taxiway Alpha 5. And so if an aircraft breaks down, or if we have to do maintenance on that concrete or just in front of that concrete, essentially shuts down the airport. And so this will allow us a second access point to the main runway. That way, if we need to do that, periodic maintenance, or if there's an aircraft that gets a flat tire in the wrong spot, it doesn't shut down our operations as we try to get it fixed. And so it'll probably be split up into 2 or 3 phases, depending on what the funding looks like at the time. It's an approximate $2.7 million project. Box off the ramp, add a little bit additional ramp space, and then also another thing it'll do on the second phase after we add that second taxi lane access. That phase, one of their big safety pushes right now is getting rid of unintruded or immediate access from parking to runway. So FAA wants to make sure that you have to take at least one turn from when you get into your plane to getting to the runway, so that it doesn't, it basically lessens the potential for runway incursions. Makes the pilot stop and think a little bit more if they have to make a turn to get to the runway. And so right now, as it stands right now, in the middle of the screen, kind of in that purplish area, you can see there's direct line access from where we're parking our planes straight out to the runway. They can just taxi straight through. So we'll remove that second, or actually that first little section, depending on how you look at it, the section that connects from Alpha, the runway that or taxiway that runs north and south, straight over to our main apron there. And so, and then move it a little bit to the south in that second phase. Still have 2 access points. You'll just have to make a turn to get to the runway now, essentially, and that is a priority of the FAA's. And so largely why this project will be funded is so that we can remediate that potential problem. So any questions before I move on to kind of some of the future planning, the airport itself, on projects that we have ongoing, have done in the past, or looking to do in the future? Okay. Of course, some of the other things I wanted to mention while I was up here, of course, we have the Wall of Honor out there as well, Vietnam Veteran Park. It's right by the main entrance. You've probably seen it as you fly in. It has the 2 aircraft on display. It's ran predominantly by Elaine Johns, who I'm sure you have all worked with or talked to in the past, who does a wonderful job of maintaining that, bringing people out to the airport. Part of the things that we want to do, and what we're really blessed here in Enid, is make sure that we have a good relationship with the community. A lot of people don't realize, but airports a lot of times are not a popular things for cities. They're a lot of times seen as noisy and money sinks for the city. Thankfully here, we're pretty well self-sustainable as an enterprise fund for the city, so we don't have to worry about that side of things. But we like to take any opportunity that we can to get the airport or the general public out to the airport and see what we have going on out there. And so one of the things that has been good about the Wall of Honor is it's accomplished that. It gets people out there, gets them seeing what we're doing. Also has the added benefit, of course, getting people interested or little kids interested in aviation as well. Along with the Wall of Honor, you have the Vietnam Veterans Wall, so 80% scale replica of the Washington, D.C. Memorial. And of course was dedicated back in 2013 under the airport director at the time, Dan Onesorge and Elaine Johns, partnering together to make that happen. We also have, a lot of people don't realize, a A-26 World War II bomber called Lady Liberty out in the old round top hangar that has the mural on the outside of it as you come into the airport. So a commemorative Air Force aircraft that's based actually here in Enid and was actually flown during World War II and is a World War II bird. So really cool, neat piece of history that's sitting right here in Enid, Oklahoma. And if you ever make it out there, a lot of times they are out at their hangar and they love to show her off at any opportunity they can. So I definitely recommend, if you haven't seen her, definitely come on out and take a look at her. She's pretty neat. And then, of course, some of the other minor things we do a little scavenger hunt from time to time. We have them up at the front counter of the airport. It was just a way, as I said earlier, one of the things that we like to do, get the community involved, but also get kids interested in aviation as well. So we have a little scavenger hunt for them to do that they can get their little pilot wings that are, kind of like the City of Enid logo that's been flopped on its side. And so they go around the airport, answer a bunch of questions about, what type of aircraft is on display at the front gate, what's the tail number of it, what about models on display that is in the Gary Rogers collection, and that sort of thing. So just a little fun activity to get kids involved. It's heavily done during our fly-ins, which are the third Saturday of the month, or January through October. They take November and December off for the holidays, but you'll see a lot of kids do them, especially on the fly-ins after they've eaten their breakfast. And then finally, some of the events that we do. Car shows is something that we've looked at doing. We've done one in the past, and we potentially will do again in the future. We do look at having food trucks out there occasionally as well. I think the last big time that we had was an air tattoo that we did with Vance. And then, of course, our monthly fly-ins as well that we host pretty much every month. The ones of note are typically March, depending on the weather, but April always through September, and that is the ones that we host a specific event, whether that be a spot landing competition. September is always our poker run or something like that. Sometimes we look at doing a stall, so a short takeoff and landing competition. So just different little things to give tenants or those flying in for those fly-ins something to look forward to and to do as well. But after all that, open up if there's any questions or anything that I missed.
Are you a part of the Teens and Tech program in the summer?
I am not. I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. Autry Tech puts on a summer program for, I believe it's 7th and 8th graders, and it's to entice them to enroll in their programs when they're sophomores in high school. Very, very popular. You have to get in early because the spaces get taken up. And I think it would be great if the airport could be a part of that.
Absolutely.
And they could somehow be involved in aircraft maintenance or something like that. So might be something to look into.
I will, if you have a contact for someone to reach out, please share it with me at some point. But yeah, I'll look into that as well and see if I can't find something.
Let me preface this by saying, not a pilot, but I was sitting with a group of private pilots recently down at Settlers, and boy, they have such strong opinions about airports. I mean, they just go, and we never got to Woodring, but I was just wondering about reviews and feedback. I get the feeling it's well respected, but what's...
Yes, yeah. So probably the best feedback that we get most consistently is our fuel prices. We tried to do very competitive fuel. Our thought process has always been quantity of sales over quality of sales. Of course, the fuel does nothing for me sitting in a bulk tank. And so we want to move it as fast as possible and get those, the revenue production and the sales out the door. And so we're members of what's called the Corporate Aircraft Association. So it's a predominantly, or it is specifically for corporate aircraft. It can't be charter services, can't be small piston planes. It has to be corporate aircraft that use it. And so we offer them an exceptional discount. In fact, by our contract with them, it has to be the cheapest fuel on the airports. But predominantly, it gets a lot of transient customers that are going coast to coast. They only stop here at Woodring for the fuel price. And so we get quite a bit of fuel sales through that program. But then also, one of the good things is that since we are a city-run FBO, is that we capture all the revenue that is done by those fuel sales. So a lot of airports that you go to, while owned by a municipality or a city, often the FBO is ran by a private entity. And so the city itself won't capture the revenue production of the fuel sales. They'll only get fuel flowage fees, which is a lot of times why those airports have to be subsidized by taxpayers and why we don't have to be. And so a big part of what we try to do is offer a product that can compare to those private-run FBOs, but still do it on a budget that is a municipally ran FBO. Of course, a lot of, you're never going to find the quality of product that you have at a commercial FBO, at a municipal FBO. But at the flip side, we charge just over $4 a gallon per gallon for Jet A. But at a private run FBO, a lot of times you'll see that closer to $7 a gallon. And so it's a substantial upcharge. Now, you're always going to get, there's going to be some big corporations that are going to be willing to pay that price for the service. To them, it's just part of the cost of doing business. If you want a limo service that's operated out of the airport, you're willing to pay the $7 per gallon for gas, right? But we try to market towards those that are looking more to do it more on a regular budget. We don't want to
So it sounds
price.
like we better get some good press on Chit Chat.
Yeah.
Or we'll raise the prices, right? Raise revenue, fix more things out there.
Yes, yeah, that's the revenue has to come from somewhere. And so predominantly that is done through jet fuel. That is our biggest revenue production stream. And then the second largest would be through our hangar rentals, and then third is through the avgas sales. And so as we look at how we can make ourselves and continue to make ourselves sustainable, potentially fuel prices, that's our easiest one. We try to keep it as cheap as possible. When looking, of course, pre-COVID times, we sold about 300,000 gallons of jet fuel per year. That was what we targeted. About 30,000 per month is what we wanted, but it usually averaged about 300,000. During COVID, we were one of the lucky few, actually probably less than 2% of airports saw this, but we actually saw an increase in sales, a vast increase, largely because of Vance Air Force Base. They utilized Woodring heavily because they were allowed to land at Woodring, especially when COVID was really starting up, and they restricted access of where people could fly. They remained open here at Woodring. And so we went from about 300,000 gallons of jet fuel per year to a little over 750,000 gallons. And so a substantial increase. It's kind of leveled off back towards normal now. Our new normal kind of is 500,000 gallons a year now. It's predominantly pre-COVID at 300,000. It was 150,000 to GA aircraft, 150,000 to military aircraft. During COVID, it was predominantly 90% military, and then about 10% of it was GA. Now we've averaged back out to 50-50. So we've seen a steep increase in general aviation aircraft sales. So we're averaging about 250,000 gallons of jet fuel to general aviation aircraft and about 250,000 to military aircraft. Avgas, which is a much smaller portion of our revenue production stream, we used to see about 30,000 gallons pre-COVID. It spiked a little bit during COVID as people were looking for things to do. Going flying was a safe thing that they could do. So you saw an uptick in avgas sales, and you've seen it level off about 50,000 gallons a year now on avgas.
Keston, you may have mentioned this a while ago, and I might have missed it, but the other day you were telling me about the list that you have, the standing list waiting to get a hangar.
Yes.
Because I know that from time to time, people always ask me, why are we putting up so many hangars out there?
Yeah, so that's something you'll see nationwide if you go to pretty much any airport, but there's a huge hangar shortage pretty much everywhere. We've, now that we've got those new South Ramp hangars, it's gone down a little bit, but we're still sitting about 30 people on our wait list for wanting a hangar at Woodring Airport. You know, when you look at the cost of building those hangars, the South Ramp hangars for the hangars themselves was $1.4 million for 8 hangars. You can see why people just can't afford to purchase them. It's another thing that the FAA has tried to kind of advise is that they don't want hangar rentals to be a barrier of entry to aviation. They say there's already enough barriers to getting into aviation as a hobby or as a job. And so they don't want the rental of the hangar itself to be one of those barriers. It costs, now post-COVID, it's closer to about $15,000 just to get your private pilot's license. And that doesn't certify you to fly anything big. That's just your small general aviation plane, and that's not even for hire. That's just for you to fly by yourself or with your friends for no money. If you want to fly at night, you have to get an IFR cert. If you want to fly multi-engines, you have to go back and get trained to do that. If you want to fly for monetary gain, you have to get a commercial pilot's license. So there's plenty of steps along the way, and a lot of those steps cost a lot of money. And so one of the things to keep that from people from getting into that was keeping hangar rental cheap. So we're pretty middle of the road of what we charge for our hangar rentals, but depending on the type of hangar or the size of hangar, it's anywhere from $150 a month all the way up to $600 a month if you're in our 60 by 60s that have, you know, bathrooms and offices attached as well. So, but, you know, predominantly if you go to in town and get a self-storage place, you're going to pay more per square foot for self-service storage than you will for hangars, and that is by design. We have to remain part of our federal obligations by taking federal grant monies is we have to remain within fair market value for hangar rentals. And so while that means not charging too little for your hangar, it means not charging too much as well. Obviously, if you have a wait list, you have some, you know, you can charge more. If you have that demand, you can always price up until you meet that demand. But we want to be, you know, reasonable with what we charge. And so we try to stay middle of the road of what. We participate in the Oklahoma Rates and Charges Survey that's done by the University of Norman. And so we submit our rates and charges to them, and at the end of the year, they provide all the participants back with the results of those surveys to make sure that we stay within that fair market value area.
Kester, the 90 hangars or so city-owned, does that include the new 8 ones?
That includes
The
the
new
8 ones,
8
yes.
hangars?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you talked about with the upcoming projects, part of one, I don't recall what you called it, but we're planning on building 8 more
Yes.
GA. We haven't built new GA hangars since at least the 70s or 80s
Yes.
when you were talking
Yeah.
about those porta ports. I
So,
think that's important to note too.
yeah, this.
A lot of stuff, good stuff happening for general aviation out there too.
Yeah, it's kind of a golden age, I would say, on funding, and we've been able to take advantage of that well. So absolutely, the new South Ramp hangars is the first new general aviation hangar development out the airport in decades. We already have secured 50% of the funding to go back and redesign the second row of the porta-port hangars as well. I would have thrown it up on our projects, but I don't have that guarantee on the 40%, so I didn't want to promise too much too early, but I'm fairly confident on it. We've approached the Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics about participating in their hangar development grant again. And that would be a 40% share of that project. So we'll construct, this time we'd be looking at constructing probably a 50 by 40 hangar. Minimum that we could do, if we can do 50 by 50, we would prefer that, but it'll depend on the space requirements in that area that we're going to develop. And so that'll allow us to put a 48-foot usable opening door on that and allow us to market towards small twin aircraft. And so that'll be about a $2.5 million project is what we're estimating. We've already started the design with our airport consultant engineers. And so we'll be ready to break ground as early as next year if that Oklahoma Department of Aerospace and Aeronautics grant comes through.
And you did mention the funding's lining up. PPPs, paying for part of that,
Yep,
right?
50% of that is coming from the Oklahoma Development and
And
Finance
then
Authority.
fuel
through the
cells should
PPP.
take care of the rest, right?
Yep, the 10% that remains will be taken care of through the airport's budget. So fuel sales, hangar rentals, and some miscellaneous things here and there.
Very good. Any other comments? Anybody? No? Good job, Keston. We appreciate everything you're doing out
Absolutely.
there. I know that's a big lift. So thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. With that being said, I am going to adjourn, and we will start our regular meeting at 6:30.